Okay, welcome, Tim. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. If you can hear me, can I see a thumbs up? Just use the reaction button at the bottom of your screen. You should see a reaction button. Good. I see a number of people hearing me loud and clear. So I want to welcome you to our session today. I'll be facilitating it. Please let me know where you're joining us from. Let me know where you're joining us from this uh, third, this Thursday evening. Just on the chat option, let me know where you're joining us from. I want to welcome somebody. We have Joel from Nairobi, Catherine from Kiambu. Welcome, Catherine Evans from Nairobi, Kenya. Evans member from Lusaka, Zambia. Welcome, Evans, the two Evans of Solomon Godfrey from Dar es Salaam. Good to have you, Solomon. Amazing city there. I love there. I always love whenever I come there. Mohammed Dwele from Somaliland. Welcome, Mohammed. Good to have you on the call. Jacinta from Emali, Kenya. Welcome, Jacinta. Oshumba from Rwanda. Good to have you, Oshumba. Can't wait to be in Rwanda. We will be in Rwanda for the PMI Africa conference this August. It's gonna be in August, I think from 19th or something like that. Looking forward. Beautiful country, the land of the hills. Mike Osare from Isiolo, welcome. Michael. Msabe Yezu. Well, forgive my pronunciation there. From Rwanda, welcome. Good to have you on the call. You guys should plan to attend the PMI Africa conference. That's the largest convention for project leaders organized by PMI. Just an amazing, amazing event. Goes around different countries. Was to be there last year, but postponed because of the outbreak that happened last year. Previously in Nigeria, no, previously in Kenya. The previous year before that was Nigeria. Then in Dar es Salaam, we were there as well. Always great to just be in these spaces where you just have people speaking nothing but project managers from all fields. So good to have all of you guys. Welcome. Those of you joining us now, let's know where you're joining us from. Paul from Kismayo, Somali. Welcome, Somali. Meow. Msimi from Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome, Meow. Ronald Adega from 254. That's Kenya. Welcome. Beverly Ondiek from UK. Welcome. Uh, Good to have all of you. So we shall begin in a few minutes. So want to welcome each one of you. Good to have all of you on the call. Always good to have each one of you on the call. Amazing sparing some time that this particular evening to have a few, tips and here and there on how you can advance your career. Of course, in the space of project management, which is a fast growing space, I must say so. James Kai from South Sudan, welcome, James. Good to have you on the call. We have somebody from Kampala, Jonathan. Good to have you, Jonathan. Our friends from just across the border. Beautiful country as well. Apart from the potholes on the roads. Uh, Good to have you, Magodzi from Botswana. Amazing. Good to have somebody from Botswana. Oh, we have somebody from Malawi here. Mohango. Good to have a great representation. across the different countries. Botswana, Malawi, I think you should be 1 hour behind. Uh, uh, the time zone I am now, it's what time is it? It's now half past 8 p.m. Not I'm not in Kenya. Of course, I'm from Kenya, but not currently there. So a little bit ahead, but good to have you guys. A little bit warm here. I know some guys are suffering from the cold. I think most of the East African guys. Yeah, Malawi should be 1 hour. Now it should be 5. Okay, great. Welcome, guys. Good to have each one of you on the call, and quite honored to be facilitating this session with you. Just some housekeeping rules. You will appreciate that you're in a webinar setting, and not for any other reason, but because of the larger numbers that ordinarily will attend this session. So you're in a webinar setting. So because of that, you will not be able to unmute and speak throughout the call. You can, however, uh, put your question in the chat. Once I finish the presentation, I'll be looking into the chat to uh, to 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 respond to your questions, and that is what will not have been responded by Brenda and the Pickpoint team. Ordinarily, when we are having normal sessions, normal PMP sessions, we have a break at exactly 7:30. But today's session, we shall not have any break. So I'll continue throughout the class. However, feel free to take a break at your own time. Should you want to be allowed to speak, for whichever reason a question is not answered, or you feel it's not been answered and you could want to speak later on, please, we shall at the tail end, we'll give you a chance to ask questions, to put your hand up, then we will we'll unmute your mic for you to be able to respond. Then another thing that perhaps will be of value to you is along the way, you will be invited. We have a WhatsApp group, which if you want to jump into the WhatsApp group, sometimes you have questions and you find that you might not ask them, or you might feel like you want to have a follow-up with a WhatsApp group, and the link to that WhatsApp group shall be in the chat along the duration of this class, so that you can jump into the WhatsApp group for any other clarification. Should you want to register for any of the sessions that we shall be talking about, you can always register via a link that will also be be shared in the chat. But mostly we shall have most of the interactions in the chat. Kindly feel free to put your question there. I'll most definitely be responding to the same once I am done with the presentation. The presentation is expected to take about 2 hours maximum. I'll try to stick with that 2 hours timeline. But should it go overboard, it wouldn't be so much, maybe by 15 or so minutes. Thereafter, we will have a chance to ask a couple of questions. My name is Kevin Nyakundi. I'm an engineer by profession, but indeed very passionate about project management. I am a product of the product. I speak so much about project management because of the value that it gives us. In this particular evening, I'll be talking about this is just an introduction to the project management professional session, that a session that we offer at Peakpoint Consulting Group, and this ordinarily is um, about 60 hours, 54 to 60 hours session, depending on what session you take. Again, I'll talk about that later on. This session is offered or brought to you by Peakpoint Consulting Group. Peakpoint Consulting Group is one of the premier authorized training partners in East Africa, and we basically do facilitation and training for those of you who are keen on becoming project management professionals to be accredited by PMI and certified by PMI as project management professionals, as project professionals. Some of you who have, years of experience in project management, but you want to validate your experience. And that, of course, is what certifications do to you. The PMP certification is a global standard when it comes to matters project management. And indeed, irrespective of the field that you are in, whether you are in NGO space, whether you're in construction space, whether you're an engineer, whether you're in the medical field, whether in the IT field, the PMP certification cuts across all the industries, basically, showing your skill set in your ability to lead and manage projects, which is a great value. Now, projects are really nothing other than vehicles for value. And throughout this particular session, one of the key things that will come out very clearly is that the very reason why organizations engage in projects is because projects are out to really deliver value, this session will be recorded and you will have access to the recording later on. So sorry, forgot to record that. So welcome all of you to this session. And I will, without further ado, just go straight into the presentation. Just a little bit about Peak Point Consulting Group. Again, I said this is a consultancy and training firm based in Nairobi, South Africa. We have trained, and done services across most of the countries in Africa, Botswana, Malawi, Kenya, definitely, Uganda, Rwanda, Zambia, Namibia, South Africa, and quite a number of other countries in Africa. And of course, we are proud about that. We offer a number of services, but of course, most definitely why we're here this evening is because of the training arm. So we shall be talking a little bit about training and in particular, our specialization in the area of project management. But of course, we offer multiple other training and opportunities. We are an authorized training partner with PMI. That means that PMI has vetted and accredited us, and all the trainers at Peak Point, myself included, are accredited by PMI. What that does to you is to guarantee quality and also, of course, to guarantee the fact that any training that you receive from Peak Point is really nothing short of the standards and quality that PMI demands. But we really don't want to always restrict ourselves to the quality that PMI demands, because internally, we also are very keen on the Kaizen principle, that we want to be better today than we were yesterday. So most definitely, one of the things that we tell people is that, if you get our service today, you're getting a better service than the previous team that was on the call, that they got. Uh, of course, as an ATP, we've continued to build confident, highly trained project professionals, and we are glad that in the recent, as of our latest statistic, anybody who has done the PMP class certification from us, we're now around 94.5% pass rate, which is by any standard very good. We can never get to 100% for obvious reasons that, there always has to be room for improvement. But we are more than confident with that rate. I mean, that means for about every 9 people, every 10 people we train, 9 of them get PMPs, which is amazing for us. And we working towards 100, but we like that. So welcome on board, ladies and gentlemen, to this PMP masterclass. And I want to start with a quote from Aristotle. And Aristotle says that excellence is never an accident. Excellence is never an accident. Indeed, excellence is a function of intention, preparation, and practice. Intention, preparation, and practice. And really, I think that is powerful. And of course, the fact that most of us are on this call this evening is just a deliberate show of your desire for excellence, that you have to be very intentional to be in this class this particular evening. And throughout this course, one of the things we shall be saying is that projects are really nothing other than vehicles for value. But for us to get to a point where we are delivering excellence in project management, we have to be very intentional. We have to be very intentional. We have to practice. We have to do some level of preparation. And hopefully, by us being in this particular call, there is also intentionality and wanting to seek excellence in not just how we execute projects, but also in our own personal and career growth. In 2008, Malcolm Gladwell, some of you could be knowing Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote a very interesting book, Outliers. And in that book, Malcolm Gladwell was seeking to answer one basic question. What does it take to achieve excellence? What does it take to achieve excellence? And his answer, 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. He looked at what separates high performance from low performance from mediocre performance. And his simple answer was 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Deliberate practice. Now, 10,000 hours, to get to 10,000 hours, if you're doing it 8 hours a day, that is 5 years. If you're doing it 4 hours a day, that's about 10 years. If you're doing 2 hours a day, that's about 20 years. But I mean, 20 years from now, most of us will still be in this world. But the question is, how better will you be at that time than you are today? And I think as we go through this class, of course, this class doesn't give you the 10,000 hours rule, but I think it sparks that, we start the journey. We start the journey towards excellence. We start the journey towards being better leaders, because as project managers, as project professionals, we really are nothing other than leaders. I mean, I tell project professionals, you cannot tell me that you are managing projects, yet you cannot lead people, because how we deliver projects is really through people. We deliver projects through people. So a little bit about myself. I'm an engineer by profession, a decade of experience in the space of project management. Indeed, I always tell people that I'm a product of the product. I, when I talk about project management, is because a couple of years ago, I discovered that yes, as an engineer, I was really never getting things wrong technically, but number of times I found myself in a mess because I wasn't managing really projects well before. Of course, I decided to jump into the deep end and just learn the cracks of project management. And just like many of you who you find yourself, you're an accidental project manager. You manage projects by virtue of, you are there. You are a good programmer. We give you a project. You're a medic, or you're in the education sector, a project comes up and we give you a project. You're in finance, in HR, and a project comes in HR and we give you a project and you become a project manager. But is it enough to have the title that you're a project manager, you're a project engineer, you're a project coordinator? That is really not all. So you'll find that you have to be uh, to put some effort to run some to really get to appreciate some of the nuts and bolts of the space of project management. And I hope by the end of this particular session you really will get to appreciate a number of things. That's I've had a chance to train a number of people in the space of project professionals, and just for avoidance of doubt, that is not what I do full time. I'm always, I'm in the trenches. I'm making sure that I deliver projects. So it's not just, from the book knowledge, but from practice, from what we do every single day. And when we talk about critical path, for example, it's not just about you memorizing it, but what is really its value in projects. That's what we really bring on board. Of course, again, as I mentioned, I'm an accredited trainer by PMI. I do a number of their trainings. PMP, CAPM, PMICP, PMI-ACP, that is the Agile Certified Practitioner. And on the side, when it comes to project management, I still do a lot of contract management. Some of you could be very familiar with with FIDIC contracts. Again, I handle a lot of projects using that. So just getting to appreciate. So I want to welcome you to the PMI Authorized PMP Masterclass. So this course content that I present to you here is accredited by PMI. And those of you who've just done some of your homework, you know that for you to be able to do the PMP certification, PMI requires that you have a minimum of 35 contact hours of this particular training. So the certificate that once you undertake the whole course, the certificate that you get on board gives you the 35 contact hours. Of course, that is not today's certificate, but rather, the certificate you take, and I'll talk about that later on. The promise we make about this class, the PMP Masterclass, is that this is the most comprehensive PMP training course in the market. And it's not bragging because we have evidence, but I'll tell you for free that this is not just a training that you get in and you leave feeling empty, like feeling this is time wasted. Not at all. Not at all. We endeavor, all the facilitators you shall encounter throughout this class really endeavor to deliver not just the level best, but make sure that you're not just preparing to pass the PMP exam, but preparing to become a better project manager, to preparing to add value to your organization so that you can be able to make sure that your projects are delivering the value that you promise your clientele to be able to deliver. So in this particular session, we will be able to look at, the strategic role of project management, that project management is now a strategic competency. Project management is a strategic competency, and we have to appreciate that. That we look at a case for effective project management. Why is project management important? What is the case for it? Why is it that most organizations are now seeking out people who cannot just deliver projects, but people who can deliver value in the projects? So again, the concept of value and value delivery is a very key concept in project management now. What is PMI? This certification is offered by PMI. The PMP certification is offered by PMI. But who are PMI? Who are PMI? I guess it's just important that you get to appreciate who PMI are, because they are the owners of the certification, even as you look at it. Now, we'll try to look at PMP credential. Just have a look at the PMP credential. But we want to look at the PMP credential. And as we look at the credential, I want you to look at it from the lens of the value creation. Because again, projects are vehicles for value. Projects are vehicles for value. So the question is, how does this certification help you to be able to deliver value to your client? How does it help you to be able to position yourself as a person of value? It's a person of value to be able to deliver value to your client, so that your projects are also delivering the value that you promise in the business cases to be able to deliver. Then, of course, later on we'll do a very, we have some introduction into the project management. So we're gonna do some brief intro into the course content that you will be looking at, and I'll be telling you just a little bit about, what next after this particular session. So let's have.
Got a call from a local consulting company wanting to talk to me and discuss my eligibility for a project manager role. This never happened before the PMP certification. I currently work with Deloitte Canada, as a senior consultant in the business agility practice. I was trying to get into the project management space. I had sent out my resume. I didn't get a lot of traction. And then my friend told me, nobody's going to talk to you if you don't have PMP, because it creates that confidence and assurance of your understanding of project management. And I said, I'll go for it. Within 3 months, I got the certification. And 2 months after, I got a PM job. The part of being a PMP that's helped is the fact that you have an understanding of leading practice and marry them with the understanding of the local operating environment to deliver those unique projects. I feel that without the PMP certification, a lot of the outstanding results that we achieve would not have been achieved. My name is Bala Deshokwe, and I am a PMP.
So one good thing about the PMP certification is the fact that it's a globally recognized certification. That's always a great thing. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in Botswana, Malawi, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Canada, whatever part of the globe that you are in, that the PMP is recognized in that country. I think that's a great thing. That's a great thing. So it standardizes the level of understanding in project management. So some of the key ideas perhaps that will be of value to you this particular evening. The first thing is that projects are focused on business results, creating value, competitive advantage, and winning in the marketplace. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no organization in the world, in your country or any other part of the country or the world, that just does projects because they have so much money and we just want to waste it on projects. Not at all. Not at all. The only reason that we execute projects is because projects are to deliver value. Projects are to deliver value in the marketplace. Projects are to create some level of competitive advantage. If you think about countries, when a country wants to invest, for example, in an airport, what is the reason for that? When an organizations want to invest in a project to be able to improve their processes, what is really the reason? To expand their business. It's not because they just have so much money, but rather because they want to create some value. They want to create value, bring on board some competitive advantage, and of course, ultimately win in the marketplace. That most projects today are uncertain, complex, and non-linear and changing. We live today in a VUCA world. We live today in a VUCA world. Now, for those of you who are hearing this for the first time, VUCA means volatile. Sorry. VUCA means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguity. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. We live on a more uncertain world, a more complex world, and more ambiguous world. And today's rate of change is actually the lowest rate of change. Tomorrow's rate of change is going to be faster than we think today. So projects are going to get even more complex. And the complexity is on many things. Think about the global supply chain, which is now more interconnected. A problem between, uh, Ukraine and Russia affects you in Rwanda, affects somebody in Nairobi, affects somebody in Ghana. So it doesn't matter where you are. So as we look at the complexity of the world, we have to try to be more agile, try to be more responsive to the needs of the projects, which are each day becoming more complex and growing. And I think also stakeholders are demanding more in terms of accountability, in terms of more value. That's a key thing. And one of the things that we're also noticing within projects and organizations is that the triple constraints of time. So those of you who could be familiar with project management, basic project management, you know that we have the triple constraints of time, of scope, time, and cost. Now, we must meet the time, cost, scope of our project within those particular baselines. But what we're saying is that meeting the triple constraint is no longer sufficient. It is insufficient to guarantee business success. It is insufficient to guarantee business success. That if you want to actually do more or deliver value, you have to look at beyond this idea of time, cost, and scope. So we always saying that now the new currency when it comes to project management, it's the idea of value. Value delivery is how organizations are envisioning success, impact, and transformation. Now, when we'll be looking at this class, one of the topics we look at when we look at the business environment, we have a number of modules. We have 6 modules in this class. One of the module that you look at is the module of business environment. And the module of business environment is basically trying to look at the link between organizational strategy and projects. That organizations go out and they craft very interesting visions. You have a vision, you have a mission, then you have strategies on how you want to achieve this vision and mission. But you know how the mission and vision of the organization, or that is a strategy, how the strategy is implemented? The strategy is implemented through projects. The strategy is implemented through projects. And projects talk to the strategy of the organization, then there's no value that the organization is getting. So unless you want to have do we have black elephants, white elephants, then you really are not delivering the value. So perhaps something to take with you is that and vehicles for value. A project is nothing other than a vehicle for value. A project is nothing other than a vehicle for value. Now, organizations spend a lot of money in projects, resources, not just money, resources, human resources, physical resources in projects. Of course, projects, I said earlier that they are done by people. Projects are not done by any one person. If you are a project manager and you are successful in any particular project, it is because you have a team behind you. But it's one thing to assemble a project team, but it's the real challenge is getting the team to work together. And that is the biggest challenge that you're going to have as a project manager. You could be a very fantastic, you're a fantastic programmer and we've given you a project to manage. You're not going to do the project alone. You're going to do a project with the team. And we're going to assemble this team for you, and you're going to have the team, perhaps a high-performing team. Your biggest challenge is how do you make the team to work together? It's a major, major challenge. Now, lesson 4, that's a module 4, talks on leadership. Leadership, how to create a high-performing team, how to motivate your team. You look at the motivation theories, theory X, theory Y, Heisberg motivation theory, the Maslow hierarchy of needs. But most importantly, how you use them to make decisions. Coaching, mentoring, emotional intelligence. So all those are things that really are to enable you to become a better leader, because it's one thing to have a great team, it's another thing to actually make the team to work together, to deliver, because where the rubber meets the road in project management is on the execution. It's on the execution. Now, that is not to say planning is not key. Planning is indeed very, very fundamental. Indeed, I always tell people that if you don't do so much work on the upstream side of the project, we have the upstream side of the project, the downstream side of the project. Upstream side of the project, we're doing planning. Downstream side of the project, we're doing execution. Now, if you do a messy job or a shoddy job in upstream side of the project, the downstream side of the project is going to be even messier. So we still want to pay very close attention to it, but delivery is very key. Project teams, it turns out, are not inherently set up for success. Most project teams underperform despite the extra resources they have. Why is that the case? The reason is simple. Poor project leadership. Poor project leadership. It is my hope that hopefully one of the key things that the PMP is being keen on is how to make sure that you as a project professional, you're also a good project leader. You can communicate well, you can negotiate well, you can up your emotional intelligence, that ability to be a better leader, because there's no project in the world that was ever done by one person. We are going to execute projects through people, and the success of any project is going to be anchored on the people on the team. But the team is really just a team. As a project leader, you're the vision bearer for the project, and as a vision bearer for the project, then you must exude and be able to lead the team so that we are not just good project managers, but also good project leaders, good project leaders. And I hope that as you go through the entire, class, you come out at the end, not just as a good project manager, but also a good project leader, having to just appreciate a couple of things that hopefully make you a better person than you came into the course. When opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. John Wooden said that. I have had a number of people who call me or who will call the Peak Point team. We have a discussion, and this happens nowadays. It happens more frequent than not. Somebody calls me because they have seen, a job advert in their country and tells me, hey, I really want to apply for this job. It requires me to be a PMP. How soon can I get the PMP? And I tell them, unfortunately, there's a time frame. You cannot be a PMP in less than 1 month. That I will be lying to you. That I will be lying to you. You cannot be a PMP in 2 weeks. That is a falsehood. You have to, it requires time. It requires time. Best case scenario, 2 months. Average case, 1 month of the training. That's I'm putting the 1 month of training, and of course 1 month for exam preparation, and of course you do the exam mode. 1 month of training, 2 months of exam preparation, and then you do the exam. So 2 to 3 months, reasonable time. So uh, when opportunity comes, sometimes it's too late. There's no employer going to give you about 3 months to be ready and have your PMP before they can employ you. So you really want to make sure that you are just ready before the opportunity knocks, because when it knocks, it might be too late. It might be too late. Now, what is the case for effective project management? Number one is that the world is becoming more projectized. We are in an era of the project economy. We live in an era, we say we are in a project economy. Indeed, there is an article from the Harvard Business Review, and it's titled The Project Economy Has Arrived. What does that mean? In that article, the author tries to illustrate how organizations today spend so much money on projects and project related activities that all work today is more planned in a projectized way. And you'll find most likely within those of us on the call that we find ourselves either being told that, hey, you're part of the project team or you're leading a project team. So you're either leading a project team or being part of a project team, or you're currently in a project team, or you will be in a project team tomorrow, or you have just come from being a part of a project team. So the only way that organizations execute their strategy is through projects. Because of that, there are more people now who are engaged in project activities and project management activities than previous. So that is what we call it the project economy. We're more of a projectized, state. And projects and programs help organizations to achieve their goals and strategic objectives. If you think about government, and those of you who work perhaps in government and government agencies, could be ministries, could be state parastatals and state agencies, or those of you who work on programs, perhaps NGOs which are funded by the government. I mean, about 95% of government policies are delivered through major projects, whether infrastructure, education, healthcare. You know, if you look at how government really delivers most of its policies, is through major projects. And because of that, project management is really now more strategic than ever. It's more strategic than ever, and we seeing this. Despite the amount of money, or despite the realization that we're doing so much in terms of projects, to deliver the value of our to deliver our strategic goals within organizations, There is still a vicious cycle of poor performance, low productivity, and major project failures. And this across all industries, from healthcare to NGOs to infrastructure. Perhaps infrastructure is more familiar. We see them. We see a road in a part of a country that is never completed. We see a hospital that was started that is not completed. We see a dam that was started somewhere, it was never. So sometimes it's more prominent in this. But I mean, this is because we see this. But there are more NGO projects that stalled because the value was not realized, or things went wrong. Donors ran away because they saw that we're not going to get value in this particular project. Uh, Yesterday I was listening to news, and I heard that the US government has now banned the USAID. They basically pull out of the USAID program. Well, which was, at least in Kenya, and I know in a good part of African countries, doing so much in terms of especially the healthcare space, that I'm more familiar with because I have some friends there who work in those. The US government, one of the reasons they were saying is that they are giving so much money, yet they don't feel the value. There's some sense of accountability and all. Well, of course, a couple of politics there, with especially the current president of the US. But for me, what was keen on, as I read through, or as I listened through that news, was this emphasis on value for money, value. And think about it. I mean, I think even organizations, they query that so many times, this idea of value and value realization. Are we really getting value for money? Organizations globally continue to find it difficult to deliver projects that are meeting project objectives around the iron triangle of cost, scope, and time, along with achieving stakeholder satisfaction. Now, remember, I mentioned that the triple constraint is really the bare minimum. It's this. If you think about, this is a flaw when it comes to the level of achievement when it comes to project management. It's not the ceiling. It's not the ceiling. We're saying that is a bare minimum. That we still want to get more from projects than just meeting the triple constraint. But beyond that, we even at that bare minimum, we're not still doing so well. We're still not doing so well. And one key thing, that I noted so many years ago as an accidental project manager, was that, yes, very good technically in other technical aspect, but when it came to other matters of project management, I had some deficits. I had some deficits. I had some gaps. And that is really the case for most people. Yes, good in your area, good in your area of specialization, but hey, here's a project. There's much more. There's much more in managing a project than just being good in your specific area of operation, and that's really the key thing we shall be seeing later on. Project management skills are still in demand, with high volumes of projects being delivered across a wide scope of project types beyond infrastructure and technology area. Now, for the longest, really, project management, quite honestly, has been, when you talk about project management, people think that, hey, this is for IT people, this is for engineers, this is for architects. Not at all. Not at all. Yes, indeed, for the longest, in the 1960s, going to the 1970s and 1980s, in the 1960s, that's when project management really, as we know it today, evolved. And quite honestly, yes, it was in the space of the infrastructure space because, I mean, coming right after, so much development after the World War II, there was so much development. So it was necessary that, especially infrastructure, so building space, the military and the, and the defense and the militaries and different uh, countries were really looking at development. So that is where project management started. But of course, over time, project management now is a currency in all fields. So we have projects everywhere. We have project in finance, we have project in HR, we've so many projects in healthcare, and we see so many people, doing projects in these spaces. So now we are looking at projects just beyond the infrastructure and the IT space that everybody is in search, and all um, industries are in search of profiles, project managers who can be able to deliver value, deliver unique, identifiable value in projects. Now, my research institute shows that globally we have about the global economy should require about 25 million professionals by 2030. And these are people working projects related fields. So not necessarily as project managers, but people who are actually within the project management field. I mean, doing your area, but handling a project. That's basically how the number is. And some other research actually puts this even at a higher number, which of course just points to the value that the whole idea that most organizations are now dealing with much more projects than before. Now, how do we get to success in complexity? I said earlier that we're living in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and of course, ambiguous world. Projects are getting larger and complex, increasingly in terms of design, financing, procurement, risk, and ultimately execution. And the complex projects and programs involve significant uncertainty and volatility, and we saw that, which has become a constant in the current project delivery environments. And we expect that to even continue. Again, as I mentioned, today's rate of change, when we're seeing today, this is the slowest that we're going to see. Tomorrow's rate of change, next year's rate of change is going to be faster than we're seeing today. So the question is, are you ready for it? I don't know. Are you waiting for somebody to tell you to be ready for it? I don't think so, because you are here this particular evening. So project professionals and organizations must evolve to thrive in complexity. We must evolve. If you're a project professional, if you're handling projects, you cannot solve today's challenges with yesterday's level of knowledge. You have to be very intentional to seek and to grow towards excellence that we saw earlier there. And my expectation, of course, is that the PMP really puts you and gives you that chance to. About 80% of global executives believe that having project management as a core competency helped them to remain competitive. This was research done by the Economist Intelligence in the wake of the pandemic, and that those 2021 especially was a very turbulent year immediately after the pandemic. And most project professionals, most executives, then about 80% of them who are in that particular research, felt like them having people who understood, who really were good in project management, helped them to remain more competitive during that shaky period. Now, if as a project professional, you're going to deliver value to your clientele, it's not sufficient to have technical skills. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that technical skills are not of value. Not at all. Not at all. But what we're saying is that you need to have technical skills, but you also want to have some business skills. As a project professionals, you make some key decisions. You make a decision today to change a particular scope of work. But what is the ramification of that? What does it have on the budget? What is the implication to the overall business goal? What you approve to spend overtime today to be able to crash, to be able to compress your schedule. What is the implication of that in the overall, bottom line of the organization? So your ability to be able to understand business terminologies and business skills is very fundamental. Now, we look at, in this particular class, you get to appreciate what we call project selection methods. How do you select projects? So when you are talking, for example, about net present value. What is net present value? What is internal rate of return? What is payback period? If you have a payback period of a shorter payback period and a higher payback period, what should you select? Which kind of project should you select? Now, most of you, maybe you do not, you don't engage in actual project selection. You're given a project to handle, but a number of you could be, at higher levels of the organization. And of course, even those of you, making those decisions today, tomorrow when you're in higher levels of the organization, you'll be faced with a case where you have project A, B, C, and D. And you don't have infinite resources. You have finite resources. How do you select project B over C, D, and A? How do you settle down and say you're gonna do project A? You have to use business analysis skills. You have to be able to understand, what is net present value. Can I get the net present value for all these projects? Can I be able to compare which project should I? Sometimes you might not even do it, but if your finance guys are doing it and they come with that jargon, you understand it. So we have to understand the link between the success of the project we're doing and the strategy that that particular project is meant to deliver. Leadership skills, I cannot overemphasize the value of leadership skills. Today's project leader, today's project manager cannot just be a project manager. You have to be able to do what? You have to be able to lead with empathy, be able to negotiate, be able to communicate well, be able to um, uh, look into the future and see how the people decisions we make today, how are they impacting the motivation of people, the morale of people? So that's really what lesson 4 is all about. Are you able to coach people, to mentor people? Are you able to embrace diversity? You're working with multiple, today's world we work with, you find that project teams have multiple people on the team. Are you able to embrace diversity, so that we are not homogeneous individuals. We are heterogeneous, but we want to work towards a common goal within the project. Digital skills, again, in the wake of think of AI, we all do appreciate, the value for this, that there's some skill set that we must know. For example, how does AI impact your project and the like. So a couple of things that, as a future PM, to be future ready in terms of a project management, you need to be able to appreciate. The future project manager will be more in touch with the need and demands of the organization. They will no longer solely be focused on the narrow scope of schedule, budget, and you have to go beyond and deliver value. You have to go forward and deliver value. Indeed, projects are nothing other than vehicles for value. Projects are nothing other than vehicles for value, and we have to appreciate that. We have to appreciate that. We have to make sure that we every time we're engaging in a project, do you understand what value will this project be able to bring on board? Most importantly, are you able to deliver that particular value? Are you able to advise your clients on that particular value proposition? In lesson 6 and module 6 of this particular course, we look at what a concept we call value realization. Value realization. What is value realization? Beyond the commissioning of the project, how are we going to get the value from this particular project? That is fundamental. That is important to organizations. Organizations want to appreciate not just that you have finished your project, but beyond you finishing the project, how is the value that we promised them going to be attained? That value realization now is a big component when it comes to project execution, and just thinking about having a value driven mindset. And that is hopefully one of the things that we shall really be emphasizing, and just making sure that we all do really appreciate that we just don't do projects for the sake of doing projects, but we do projects for the sake of delivering value. Projects are nothing other than vehicles for value. Projects are nothing other than vehicles for value. So I want to shift gears now to just look at a couple of things on the PMP certification. So how does the PMP certification deliver this? How does the PMP certification deliver this? So first of all, we'll just get to appreciate this concept of value, and we now want to see what is the value of the certification. What is the value of the certification? So what is PMP? PMP is a project management professional. It is a project management professional. It is a globally recognized certification, and it proves that you have the ability to lead projects in any organization, in any industry. So the PMP certification is not an industry specific certification, not at all, not at all. So the PMP certification is not an industry specific certification. It cuts across all industries. So this certification is a mark of excellence in any location and in any industry. So in any location, in any industry, wherever you are, the PMP certification will give you, that particular credibility that you have this. So and again, I mentioned some of you many years of experience in managing projects. What the PMP certification does is to validate that particular experience that you have, so that when you tell us, hey, I have 20 years of experience, now not only do I have the 20 years of experience, but I also have a PMP. So the PMP validates your experience, which is a good thing, because that validation is a validation globally. So it doesn't matter your industry, doesn't matter your country, you will be recognized for that. So which is a good thing. So let's just watch a short clip here, then we continue.
50 years ago, when PMI was founded, project management wasn't a thing yet. But thanks to a fearless group of visionaries and passionate project leaders like you, project management is now a global profession. Every day, everywhere, we transform ideas into reality. But the world of work is changing fast, really fast. So is our profession, and so is PMI. We are expanding our focus, broadening the stories we tell and the roles we play, from start to finish, from inputs to outcomes, from frameworks to whatever works. With your help, we are building a world where people have the skills and capabilities they need to deliver value, no matter what project they're working on. It's a world where organizations deliver value to stakeholders through successful completion of projects, delivery of products, and alignment to value streams. We call this world the project economy. And at PMI, we power the project economy, strengthening society by enabling organizations and empowering people to turn ideas into reality. As we look ahead to our next 50 years, what role will you play?
So what role will you play? Just a couple of things. Why should you earn the certification? One, the demand for skilled project professionals is on the rise, and I don't really think that it's gonna be slowing down anytime soon. Not for any other reason, but for the very reason that organizations are still going to invest, more and more organizations are still going to invest in projects. And as more and more organizations invest in projects, and the demand for value delivery, and the demand that organizations just don't want to invest in projects, they still want to see value. We do not expect that number to decline anytime soon, not until perhaps we find a different way of delivering value in projects. So otherwise, before that, we expect that this is going to be a trend which is likely to be for quite some time. The PMP certification is designed for project professionals, So designed by project professionals for project professionals. PMI has a very interesting way of coming up with a curriculum. They don't just sit down and they have this very theoretical program. They look at, hey, what does the industry want? What do project professionals want? Then, hey, you guys who are project professionals, can you come and help us draft, something that project professionals like you, that answers to the needs of the industry. That's a powerful thing. So there's a lot of practical nuggets that you get throughout these particular sessions. The PMP adds value, and think about, just have a look online. You don't want to take this from me. The CIO magazine, Forbes magazine. Look at the major, consultancy firms, McKinsey, KPMG, always ranking the PMP certification in terms of project delivery as one of the highest ranked, certification for people in that particular space. So PMP delivers benefits. Again, we have seen, recent studies show that, PMP certified professionals are able to negotiate for higher salaries. So if not for anything else, at least there's a reason to always smile to the bank. If I get time, I'll tell you my story. For now, let me continue the session. I'll tell you, perhaps I'll drop the story, at the end. Maybe I should tell you right now. So I remember when I finished my PMP, this couple of years ago, a couple of years back, uh, well, quite some time years back, not a couple of years back, quite some time years back. At that time, I joined the PMI Kenyan chapter. So PMI has local chapters in different countries. So we have a PMI Kenyan chapter, we have a PMI Zambia chapter, we have a PMI Ugandan chapter, Kigali, Rwanda chapter. I mean, they are local chapters. You need to check a local chapter near you. And if there's none in your country, you can always begin one. But anyway, I joined the Kenyan chapter, and we used to have these networking events. And I remember once went to this networking event. I met this gentleman. We exchanged numbers. He was Asian. So a couple of months passed, about 4 or 5 months. Then I received a call. Quite honestly, I not saved his number because he'd given me his card. And I think one of the reasons I don't like cards when we're in a networking event is because sometimes we lose them and we don't save them and all. But anyway, long story short, this guy calls, and I didn't have his number, but interestingly, he had mine. So we have, tells me, hey, we're catch up for coffee. And of course, we meet in some restaurant in Nairobi. And, he tells me that he'd gotten a job for he'd gotten a contract for the World Bank, but the World Bank wanted him to have an engineer who was also a PMP certified. And he thought I did fit the bill, and he requested if I could be on board. Um, I had another job. I had a full-time job, so I was a little bit skeptical about it. But he told me, "Don't worry. This gonna be a remote job. What I need is that I need you to be in Addis in Ethiopia, Addis, Ethiopia for 1 month. Then the rest of the month, it was an 8 month contract. So the rest of the month you work remotely, and you can do most of this work, after work." It looks like a good deal, and I agreed to it. And the long and short of it, in terms of compensation, it was an 8 month contract, and in those 8 months, the the amount of money, the pay was 3 times the annual gross salary that my then employer was giving me. And I mean, I wasn't working for just it was a blue chip company that I was working for. So my monthly salary was still good enough. So 3 times the annual gross salary, uh, for 8 months. Well, that was amazing for me. I mean, I fell in love with PMP immediately after that. But I don't tell you that to impress you, but to impress upon you the value of the certification. I am not telling you that so that you're impressed, but just so that I want to impress upon you the value of the certification, so that you really can be able to just see um, how value it is. And if you also think about some of these multinationals, the World Bank, and most of the multinational development banks, when they finance most of the projects, they're very keen. They're very keen. So you find most people who are consultants in the class, and you hear, what brings you to the class? I want to be able to get jobs for. If you're thinking about larger companies, I can tell you for free, this is a good bargain. This is a good bargain. So what are some of the factors that can influence your decision? One is, of course, your current or your desired employer. If you're dealing with projects on a day-to-day basis, you work in an environment where projects is really the key thing, then the PMP certification is without doubt a key thing to look at. If your professional development goals is to handle, to transit to project management, then this is the right certification for you. Your personal growth, you want to grow personally. We just passed slightly past the half year mark, and you feel like, I need to grow my professional growth. I'll tell you for free, not just on project management matters, but on other areas, professional development, leadership and the likes, communication, all that. Shortly, I'll be telling you about, what this really entails, and perhaps that will bring all this home. Your current profession. What is your current profession? If you are in the NGO space and you're dealing with projects on a daily basis, if you work in the IT space, if you are an architect, an engineer, and your role is in projects on a day-to-day basis, then I can tell you for free, this is really one of the best additions. You might want to think about it, or not just think about it, actually. You just want to be one because perhaps you are missing some opportunities. What's your career path like? What do you see yourself in the next 5 years, 10 years? Does it entail projects or wanting to deliver value through projects? Then again, if that is, that sounds like something that you're looking at, then this is for you. You desire to successfully implement your project. So maybe you are here and you are, at higher levels of organization, and you feel like you are spending so much money, your team is spending so much money, yet you're not seeing value for money, because you don't get, like, value delivery, or there's less delivery, then you want more project delivered successfully, then this certification will definitely be a great. Of course, if you want to get 3 times like myself those many years back, definitely this is a good bargain for you. But again, your journey might be very different from mine, but I hope it resonates to a couple of you. So, what is a journey like? Hey, Kevin, I want to get this certification, but what does that entail? What does that entail? If you wanted to be a certified project professional, what does that entail? What is PMI? So if you want to get your PMP, PMI has a couple of requirements. Number one, you need to have your degree. You need to have 4 years degree, or whichever number you have a bachelor's degree on the minimum. Then if you do so, you have 36 months in a project environment. So you need to have 36 months in a project environment. Then, of course, this particular training. So if you have the first two, then this particular training will give you the will give you the last qualification that PMI demands of you. Don't worry about this. We shall be helping you on the final day what we do in these particular classes. It just to help you do your application to PMI. So with all the templates you require, just to get to get your application ready and approved. If you do not have a degree and you have a diploma, that is okay. The only thing is that now you require at least 60 months of experience, at least 5 years experience in a project environment. Now, project environment, some people always, shy away from PMP because they feel, I've not been a project manager, I've not managed projects. PMI is not really looking at you having been, a project manager, because again, sometimes you manage projects without the title of being a project manager, but that you have been the space of projects, you have executed projects, and you can be able to document it. We shall give you that template on how to do that and guide you through the process. So don't shy away because of that. If you have 3 years experience and you've been in the space of projects, you've handled a couple of projects, it could be not very lengthy projects, maybe 3 months, 6 months, some of you 1 year. But you've handled projects again. Don't shy away. I mean, you just come on board. We're gonna guide you through the entire process. A little bit about PMI. PMI is a leading, authority when in the space of project management. So I don't think you can talk about project management without talking about PMI. I mean, PMI has been around for quite some time now, and they are a respected authority globally in the space of project management, 1969, and they have local chapters across more than 305 countries now, and no, more than 305 chapters in more than 213 countries. This is because some countries have big countries like India, US will have multiple chapters because of the sheer size of of course, the number of people who are PMPs now, and PMP is now one of their, uh, their gold standard in terms of project management. So what does the PMP really entail? Why is this a gold standard in the space of project and project management? And that's the key question. A number of people ask me, hey, why is this thing? Recently I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. He's an engineer, and he tells me, hey, Kevin, is PMP the new kid on the block? Everybody, all employers now, I look at jobs, I've qualified everything, but they tell me, hey, you must have a PMP. Is it a new kid on the block? I told them, yeah, perhaps yes. Gotta jump in and learn why he's a new kid on the block. He was in a previous class, very recent class. And when he finished the class, he told me, now I think I understand why this is the case. So what will you learn in this course? What does the PMP equip you with to be able to deliver the value that we looked at in the earlier slides? Number one, I want to be able to understand the knowledge areas, the areas that are fundamental in any particular project. The first one is project integration management. As a project manager, your key role is to act as a project integrator, to be able to unify the entire project. I always like to tell the story of this person who walks into a construction site, and on the construction site, they meet three people. The first person they meet, they ask, hey, what are you doing? And the first person tells them, I'm a bricklayer. I'm laying bricks. And they have a small chit chat. And then, of course, he moves the second person. Hey, what are you doing? The second person says, I'm a bricklayer. I'm building this wall. And they have a small chat and all. Then they go to the third person. Hey, what are you doing? And the third person saying, we are building a cathedral. It's a 4,000 capacity cathedral. Gonna have some offices here, some children's play area here, and basically goes out to describe the entire project, In that whole analogy, the third person acts like the project manager. They're able to see the project, they're able to see the cathedral, yet laying bricks. They're laying bricks, yes, just like the other two guys, but they're not just laying bricks for the sake of laying bricks. They're laying bricks to build a cathedral, 4,000 capacity, with offices, with children's play. Basically, they have a mindset of the entire. That is what really the PMP is all about, to make you be the third person in that analogy. Now, project integration management is your glue that binds all these activities, all these bricklaying activities towards building the cathedral. With integration management, you have to think about how does a simple change or a simple requirement change, how does it affect the scope? Not just the scope, how does it affect the time? How does it affect the cost? How does it affect the risks? How does it affect the resources? So you're not just looking at a parameter or a space, an item in your project, but you're looking at the ramification it has on the entire project. That is what integration management is. Integration management is about how do we unify the entire project so that we're able to deliver how do you unify all these processes to be able to deliver the project and deliver a project that delivers the value that we have promised our client. Remember, projects are nothing other than vehicles for value. A project is nothing other than a vehicle for value. Now, project scope management, this is another thing that you must understand. As a project professional, remember, you have to be the third person in my analogy. You have to see the 4,000 capacity cathedral. You have to see the offices. You have to see the children's play area. You have to see the security. You have to understand your scope of work. If you are a project manager worth their salt, you cannot deliver a project without understanding scope of work. What is the scope of work? What is the boundaries within which we are going to deliver this particular project? And when we talk about scope of work, it is important and imperative that you are able to differentiate between the product scope, and the project scope. You need to understand what is the difference between a product scope and a project scope. Of course, we shall be looking at this. What is a scope creep? What is a scope creep? Are you able to define your scope and define it well? Because anytime, if your scope is not well defined, then the other things that we talk about in project management will not make sense. The other things in the project management will not make sense because your scope of work, what does it do? It tells you how long your project will take. It affects your schedule. How much is your project going to cost? Your cost. How, what are the risks? What are the resources we require? So you must understand this. Of course, in the class, we also want to step a little bit behind and see how do we come up with scope? How do we identify requirements? So what are the requirements? Solicitation requirements, because you must have requirements for the project for you to be able to define the scope of work. Because where do you get the scope from? You must have defined the requirements. Your stakeholders must have helped you to define the requirements. How do you define those particular requirements? You have 100 requirements. You have a constraint of a budget. How do you prioritize those key requirements that are going to form of part of this particular budget so that we can do the rest later on? You must understand the prioritization techniques. What must you understand? You must understand the Kano model. You must understand the Moscow analysis. What is it? You must understand the 100 points technique. You must understand a number of other prioritization techniques so that you're able to prioritize those requirements so that when you have 100 requirements and you have to, because of constraints, and many times we have constraints in our project delivery. We have financial constraints. Sometimes it could be a time constraint that you can only deliver 70 features or 70 tasks. Then this will be, we have to kill 30, but how, on what basis? How are you going to do that? So we will take some time just to appreciate a couple of things on how to go about that. Project schedule management. I've never done a project, and I would want to know if there's any one of you has ever done a project where the stakeholders never asked two key questions. How much is this project going to cost? And how long is it going to take? How much and how long? How much and how long? So schedule management, fundamental in any project management. You must understand, how do you come up with your schedule? How do you define your schedule? What is your schedule first and foremost? How do you identify, how do you how do you prioritize the activities, or how do you use the critical path method, the CPM, the critical path method? What is it in the first place? How do we use it? What is the value of this tool? Very fun, very, very powerful. Now, most of you are going to, there's a very thin line. Today morning, I was just having a discussion with a friend of mine, and it's because he's torn between, he wants to do contract management. So he was asking, between contract management and project management, what should I start with? So I was telling him that, it really, there's a very thin line between contract management and project management. When you're a contract manager, you're really managing a project, but how we execute projects is through contracts. When you have when you have a supplier, that's a contractor. That's you go into a contractual agreement with them, right? And you're managing that particular contract. So there's a very thin line. You need both of them in short. And but the point I'm trying to allude to here is that some of you who manage contracts, this is a major area, when projects are going to delay. Many contracts might have, what we call liquidated damages or delay penalties. So for every delay, you gotta pay some penalties. So you want to minimize that because that has a cost implication. Because if you're going to have delay penalties, which are charged per day or per month, whatever that is specified in the contract, so you notice how it can affect your project. In project management, we say that the phrase "time is money" is so real. When it comes to project management, time is money is so real, and you need to be able to appreciate that. You need to be able to appreciate, in terms of project management, really what the course also entails is your ability to estimate the duration. What are the estimation techniques that you will use when you want to come up with the duration for your project? Because that is a fundamental question that we must, because how do we know how long the project will take? We must do some estimation. So what we use, the analogous estimation techniques, 3-point estimation technique, the um, bottom-up estimation techniques, and those estimation techniques so fundamental that you do understand them. Then project cost management. How long is what is the cost of the project? Because projects consume resources. Maybe before I go to cost management. Now, when we talk about schedule, it's important to appreciate that schedule is a function of the resources you use in your project. Now, when we talk about resource management in project management, it's important to appreciate that we're making reference to both human resources and physical resources. If it's human resources, your major concern as a project professional is how do you lead? It's about leadership. Because you must lead human resources. That's why we say that you must be a better project leader as well. If you're talking about physical resources, of course, we must manage them. Now, we appreciate that a project, and why we look at schedule and resources in tandem is because the resources we deploy in any task affect the duration that task takes, right? If you have a task that's going to take you 1 month and we deployed more resources, then that task is perhaps going to take a shorter duration, right? So when we're looking at project schedule, it's imperative to also appreciate what are the resources that you're going to deploy. So when my project team comes up with a schedule, I'm very keen to find out, what resources are we going to deploy? Because a schedule could look very appealing until I look at the resources and I find that we have over deployed, meaning that we're making the project more expensive. Now, notice I'm talking about schedule, but I'm bringing about the idea of cost. Why so? Because resources cost money. So the only reason why we're interested in cost in projects is because resources are not free. So if you are over deploying resources in any task, you are making your project more expensive. You're making your project more expensive. It might mean that you're not going to get the value that you desire, But just a little bit going back to resources. When we talk about resources in this particular course content, another key thing that you must appreciate, and really you see I'm just going around all these concepts, and that is the value of integration management. So one, I'm talking about schedule, but there's an implication on resources. This has an implication on cost. So when you talk about resources, we perhaps might not be having all the resources internally. We have to acquire some resources from, the organization, outside the organization. So what does that mean? We have to think about procurement. We have to think about project procurement. So we must understand procurement as well. So as a project professional, whereas it might not be your responsibility to understand procurement and in detail, it is important to just understand procurement aspect of your project, because procurement is going to directly affect the success or otherwise of your project. Procurement is going to directly affect the success or otherwise of your project. You are the person who's going to tell us, when you require that, whatever good or whatever service that we need to procure. But when again we talk about resources and cost, it's important to, of course, we mentioned about cost. So when you talk about cost, you need to be able, for this particular cost, your ability to, first of all, understand the different types of costs, be able to differentiate between direct costs and indirect costs, direct, fixed costs and variable costs, be able to differentiate what we mean by a sunk cost, be able to estimate costs, be able to estimate costs for your project. That is fundamental. Be able to look at how do we incorporate risks into costing, because as we look at our budget is not 100%. We are doing an estimation. So there is a potential that there will be some sense of risk in our project estimation. So how do we deal with that? So we have to do what? We have to talk about reserve analysis, and your ability to understand, for example, what a management reserve is, what a contingency reserve is, what does those costs entail, how do you come up with those costs, is fundamental. So just a couple of things. So my hope, throughout this class is, and what we hope that really this class gives you is not so much of the theoretical concept. Of course, you must know that as well, but your ability to make decisions, your ability to use these concepts to be able to make decisions, because that's what the PMP exam is really all about. Your PMP exam, again, is a scenario-based exam. It's not, you cannot cram your way out of in to pass your PMP exam. That if that is your intention, perhaps this is not for you. The PMP exam is a scenario-based exam. It's an application exam. So how your exam is gonna be tested, you're gonna be given scenarios. Hey, a short scenario and a question. Hey, you are a project manager for XYZ. This and this has happened. How will you do this? What will you do next as a project manager? So, of course, throughout this class, we will endeavor to just, portray how the exam and the exam questions do look like, but something to really appreciate. Project communication management, this is a fundamental aspect of project management. And as a project professional, your ability to communicate well, your ability to appreciate who are your stakeholders and what are their communication needs is fundamental. It's important. You must know that. So what you need to know here, you need to know the different communication strategies, modes of communication. How do what's active listening, for example? Just become a better communicator. So there, I spend some time on communication so you're able to appreciate. I always tell people, many of you will be crucified, not because you've done anything so grave, but because you mismanaged your communication. And some of you will will sail through any particular project, not because you don't do anything, but because you have a way of communicating, so that yes, you do something so grave, but because of how you communicate, people don't take it as gravely as as it is. And somebody does something so small just because of miscommunication, then of course, things fall asunder. So you really want to make sure that your communications are top notch. Project risk management is so fundamental. Project risk management is so important. We must appreciate that as well. And when you talk about project risk management, it's important to appreciate that you see, when projects begin, sorry. when we're doing projects, projects take time. Projects take time. We plan for today, but execution is over the long term. So the longer the duration we have here, the more uncertainty, and uncertainty creates some sense of risks in any particular project. Indeed, if you're to look at it in terms of a graph, if you're to plot this in terms of a graph, this is time, and this is uncertainty or stock risk. Uncertainty and risk are usually highest at the beginning of the project. When we are at the earlier phases of the project, there are so many things that we are uncertain about. And that uncertainty brings about risks. So when we talk about risks, key things that perhaps could be of essence to us are things like the impact of the risk, the probability of the risks, and how do we identify the risk? What is the risk management processes that we need to follow through? From risk identifications to assessment of the risks, both at the qualitative level and the quantitative level, to coming up and having risk management strategies, risk response strategies, depending on whether the risk is a positive risk or a negative risk. Of course, what that means is that we shall be looking at, we have positive risks as well as negative risks in a project. Yes, I know some of you are thinking, how can we have a positive risk? Yes, there is a positive risk and negative risk, and they will have different ways of handling them. So important to appreciate that. Procurement, again, we talked about this, very fundamental, very important to appreciate. And project stakeholder management, perhaps most of us will fail in projects, not because of so many other things, but because we mishandled our stakeholders, because we did not think that this particular stakeholder was so important, because we thought that this particular stakeholder wouldn't do anything. Stakeholder management is so fundamental. Do you know your stakeholders in your project? Do you know, what are the key things they require? So stakeholder management, this is a fundamental thing, and you need to just appreciate it. And of course, we link this together with communication. This is very important. When you're doing your communication, you must link different stakeholders will have different communication needs. Within the particular project. So just good to appreciate that. And really that's a key. That's a very important part of the project. So, ladies and gentlemen, that really is just a snippet of a snippet of what you're gonna see and what the PMP course entails. And sometimes I know many of us are always looking for the PMP for the fact that it's a global certification, which is true and which is very correct. And I understand why that is the case. We all want a certification that, of course, that is recognized across boundaries, not just in my country. But sometimes we emphasize too much on that and ignore the very a more fundamental aspect that the PMP is, besides its global recognition, that it is actually a certification that has much more value, and as you can see. Another thing that we haven't talked about here, but really very central, and we shall see this, is we will be looking at both agile project management and traditional or waterfall project management. Now most of organizations are talking about this concept of agile project management. We shall see what that really entails. So just be on the lookout. Very interesting things when we're talking about the PMP certification, as it were. I always like this. In any profession, you want to be successful, you have to distinguish yourself in some way. And really, it doesn't matter the profession you are in, whether you are in whichever industry you are in. If you want to be successful, you have to be in the top 20%. If you can be in the top 10%, even better. If you can be in the top 3%, even much better. But how you gotta be there is to distinguish yourself in some way. And I know there are very many features of distinguishing yourself, but career-wise and certification-wise, I think the PMP certification, irrespective of the industry you are in, gives you a very good differentiator. It differentiates you, and not just minorly, in a major way, and not just because of the certification and because of its global nature, I would like to say, but just by virtue of what the certification really does to you, what the certification really does to all of us is a value that it really brings on board, and I hope I've spent a good time to just really bring it home. Now, the certification is divided into three domains. Again, I don't want to talk so much about this, but PMI is divided into three major domains: the people domain, the processes domain, and the business environment domain. The business environment domain is basically focused on highlighting the connection between projects and the organizational strategy. And this is what we start with. This is the first module. This is going to be the first module that we begin with, when we begin the classes. And of course, the classes begin on Friday, no, on Saturday, and this particular Saturday, the day after tomorrow, and on Monday, next week on Monday, we begin the other session. Then we, of course, we have the processes domain, and the processes domain is about reinforcing the technical aspects of project management. So understand about risks, about scope, about schedule, and the likes. The people domain is anything that deals with people, motivation theories, emotional intelligence, leadership, all those things, communication, everything that deals with about people, falls into the people domain. But again, don't worry about that. Gotta be very straightforward. And we'll be looking at the examination content outline. This is how your exam shall be, focused on. So on the D-Day of that D-Day shall come, I always like to say so. We have 180 questions. You will be faced with 180 questions, and the 180 questions, you have 230 minutes to complete the exam. I can tell you, and one of the things that we really, really emphasize in the class is you really need you need to know your content, because you need to save on time. Time rushes on this exam. So 180 questions, 230 minutes. You have two optional 10 minutes break. I'll be telling you, on the final day, on how the exam structure really is like. You have the first 60 questions, a break, next 60 questions, another break, the last 60 questions. And of course, what can you do about reviewing? The questions are largely multiple choice questions, and the questions, and they are scenario-based questions. So it's about a scenario here, a scenario there, and that's really how you will be handling. Now, your investment in all this is you to do the PMP course, you require the or 40,000 Kenyan shillings, the PMP exam fee. Now, the PMP exam fee is $284, but this is if you're a PMI member. So how are you going to be a member? You become a member by paying $109 to PMI. So the sum of PMI membership and exam and the exam is $393, 393 USD. 393 USD is a sum, which of course makes sense. Uh, to be a PMI member before you can do the exam. If you opt to do the exam as a member, you pay more. You pay $575, which is almost double. Why would you do that? And you're a rational human being, a rational spender. If you're a rational in economics, we say that when you're a rational spender, you have to be rational in making your decision. So pay $393 for PMI membership and exam fee. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you become a PMP, and I will tell you for free, every coin and every time that you spend towards this journey is all worth it. I will tell you for free. I'll tell you, and this is the most affordable, I think, package you'll find. Of course, a credit, valid. You might find it cheaper, uh, but maybe you might not like it. So this is a constant. The exam fee, that's a constant. You perhaps will be looking much more on the training fee. Uh, just a short clip here that can have some sip of water as well.
In the realm of business, where success is earned and leadership is defined, there's a path that stands above the rest. Welcome to the Project Management Professional Masterclass PMP by Peak Point Consulting Group, a journey that unlocks your potential and sets you on the trajectory of excellence. Join the ranks of over 1.4 million esteemed credential holders, worldwide individuals who have proven themselves. Statistics don't lie. These aren't just numbers. They are your passport to professional success. At Peak Point Consulting Group, we don't just train, we mentor. We don't just educate, we empower. With our PMI authorized training partner status, we bring you unmatched expertise, unparalleled insights. With the Project Management Professional Masterclass, you don't just learn, you transform. You don't just manage, you lead. The PMP isn't just a certification. It's a symbol of excellence, a testament to your dedication to delivering results. Prove yourself with the PMP. Elevate your potential, your career, and your future. Peak Point Consulting Group, empowering leaders, transforming futures.
So, and I mentioned earlier, you can always join the next class. Of course, the next class begins, the classes are, we have Saturday classes. We also have evening classes. The evening classes will be running from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. East African time. That means it will be 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Those of you in the Central African time, that is Botswana, friends in Botswana, I think Rwanda and Malawi. That will be your time zone. That will be from 5 to 8. And for 1 month, the evening classes run Monday to Friday for 4 weeks. The next class begins on Monday. Monday will be on 8th. We also have the Saturday classes. The Saturday classes run from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. East Africa time. That is 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central African time. And those run for they run for 8 Saturdays. They run for 8 Saturdays. And they're distinct classes. So if you're doing the Saturday class, you're doing the Saturday class. If you're doing the evening class, you're doing the evening class. All the classes are recorded, and you have access to the recordings for up to 3 months. Again, within 3 months, we really do expect most people are usually have passed the PMP exam by then. The class are going to have a couple of modules, 8 modules or lessons, sometimes we call them. Business environment, starting the project, plan the project, lead the team, support the project team, and finally close the project or phase. And how we have handled it, we plan these classes, you're gonna have multiple trainers. You're gonna have about three of, I have Mark, Ron, myself on the call and different time frames. And we've tried to make sure that when one trainer just is about to get boring, the next more interesting trainer will come on board. So we've tried to just make sure that you enjoy this race, which is really very important in your career development. So this course is structured in such a way that it needs to attain the following course objectives. The first one is that you're able to master the concepts of project management, that you have an in-depth understanding of project management practices in both the agile and the predictive environment. Also, you're able to apply the project management techniques on your projects. And of course, that you get the 35 contact hours certificate that PMI requires of you for you to be able to pass the PMP exam. Most importantly, most of you who are joining this class, you want to pass your PMP exam. So we endeavor, and we've tried to really customize this course to just make sure that you getting the knowledge that will pass PMP exam on the first attempt. From the statistics that we have up to now, we don't see a reason why any one of you who attends all classes, who attends most classes, you might not attend all, but if you attend about 85% of our classes, and listen to the classes you miss, then I have reason to be confident that you will pass the PMP exam. I have very reasons to doubt that you will not be able to pass the PMP exam. So when we finish the entire series of the 6 modules in the 8 Saturdays or in the 1 month evening classes that you have, so you'll be receiving a certificate of completion. This is how it shall look. The only thing that will change will be your name and of course the dates, but more or less everything else will be the way it is in color and everything. Again, to reiterate our promise, again, I say that this is the most comprehensive PMP training course in the market, East and Central Africa. And we don't brag because we say that it's not bragging if you have evidence, and I think we have evidence. You can just check it out. Check out LinkedIn pages and see, the mentions and the success stories there. Check out Google reviews. They're much more right now than this, and what people have said about this particular training. Sometimes it's good to rely from other people. Self, I can only tell you what they've said, but you mobility if you the source of the information. So check the Google reviews, check the LinkedIn page, and you can appreciate a little bit of some of these things. And just before we jump straight into the course content, one final video here.
I thought I knew how to do every project, manage every project, but when I became a PMP certified, it brought structure and results and brought a shape and form into how I manage and deliver projects. Currently, I'm an Operational Excellence Coordinator at Texas Department of Transportation. Becoming a certified project manager is like one of those serendipities. I was a little stubborn. I did not see the importance of being certified since I was doing the job already. If I had known what I know now, I could have been certified 20 years ago. And I was able to learn quick. I was able to lead other certified PMPs to mentor hundreds of others. If you work in an environment that is innovation-driven, you're going to need PMP skills to be able to walk toe-to-toe with those other people who are in the innovation space. PMP gives you a competitive advantage in the crowded job market. My name is Benjamin Anyacho, and I am a PMP.
So you too can be a PMP. And of course, again, as I said, PMP is a global standard. It's a global standard. And a link to the chat if you're keen on beginning this journey. I can tell you it's just a journey of learning, but a journey full of experience, but most importantly, a journey that is fulfilling when you finish. So there's a chat, there's a link to the chat that'll be posted a couple of times. Those of you who are keen on jumping into the next call, whether you're interested in the Saturday class or the evening class, whatever class that you're interested in, we will guide you through the process. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I always like to tell people you need to wear your PMI hat. When you come into this class, there are a couple of things that you might feel like this is not how we do things at our workplace. This is how we do things. This is not, well, perhaps you don't do things the right way. So hopefully this particular class gives you the structure. So wear your PMI hat. I don't wear your job hat. Your job hat of experience has made you successful this far, but your PMP, for your PMP exam, the PMP hat is what is going to really make you a good project manager, have the best international standards in terms of project execution. With that, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your PMP journey. And your PMP journey doesn't begin far, it begins right away. So let's get to work. We get to work, right? Awesome. So what is a project? Just as an introduction, what is a project? A project can be defined in many things. I mean, I'd love to be in a session where you guys can speak so that I can have a few of you speak up. But because I know you cannot speak because of the format that we're using, the webinar option, usually in the classes option, that is the meeting option, you're able to unmute and just speak up. But of course, because of the numbers, sometimes we're not able, we try to control them by, control the many mics by being on a webinar setting as opposed to a meeting setting. So you're not able to unmute your mic sometimes even accidentally. So what is a project? A project is defined according to the PEM book guide, there's a PMI, Project Management Body of Knowledge book, as a temporary endeavor to deliver a unique product, service, or result. A project is a temporary endeavor. It's meant to deliver a unique product, service, or result. So we're saying that there's some temporariness in it. That means there's a time bound. So a project cannot run on in infinity. A project has to have a time specification, a time limit. It's beginning today, ending after 4 weeks. That's a project. Beginning today, ending after 1 year. That's a project. Temporary endeavor. Temporary. Temporary alludes to there's a time frame within which it must be done. Projects create a unique product, service, or result. It is time limited. A project is time limited. A projects drive change. And we say that it enables value creation for a business organization. Now, we could be dealing with projects or operations. When you're dealing with projects in an organization setting, you either dealing with an operation or a project. And organizations have to have both. And that is really not to say that one is better than the other. Not at all. Not at all. We in projects deliver projects, but the operations side enable the value to be realized. They basically run this final product of ours so that we can be able to deliver the value that we promise. So temporary endeavor and ongoing output routine. New original work projects, operations are usually we say that they are repetitive output. They introduce changes, they keep the business ongoing. What are the similarities of these two operations and projects? They all are performed by resources. They all are performed by resources. We say that resources are finite. No organization has infinite resources. We all have finite resources within an organization. They are constrained by limited availability of resources, and they all have to be planned and controlled. They all have to be planned and controlled. We say that projects drive change, and they bring an organization from one state to another. We say that projects are the only way in which organizations deliver strategy. But what is strategy all about? We want to move from one state A to state B. A country wants to move from being a middle-income country to being from being a third world country to being a middle-income country. So from one state A to state B. So what do we need to do in between here? Multiple projects. Make sure that we have infrastructure working. Make sure that our people are living in better places. Make sure that we have education levels which are, empowering the communities. So projects drive change in organizations. And from a business perspective, a project is aimed at moving an organization from one state to another, And of course, that state ordinarily will be defined through the strategic objectives of the organization, the strategic objectives of the organizations. Projects also enable value creation. Again, we say that. And what is value? Value is defined as the net quantifiable benefit, tangible or intangible, identified from a business endeavor. Where do we define value? Where do we define value in the whole chain of projects? Value is usually alluded to and defined in the business case. I don't know if it's any one of you who has taken some time or who have been involved in designing or coming up with business cases. But whenever we come up with a business case, whether for a profit organization or a non-profit organization, government agency or a private agency, you have to define what value, what is the value of this particular project. No, notice one thing. We're always defining what is the value from the onset to justify the business case. Basically is a way of justifying project X over project Y. So we justify value in the business case. We execute the project, hopefully, to meet the value we justified, right? At the end of the project, we have to try see how we're going to realize the value that we promised. That is value realization that I've been talking about. So that's really the chain of value. And projects are really nothing other than delivering that chain. So benefit realization is based on the value declared. And where is this value declared? This value is declared in the business case. Now, when we talk about value, many people have a feeling like, financial value, which is true. But that is not the only type of value. That is not the only type of value. Value is defined from the lens of what is the objective of the organization. So if you are in a non-profit organization, for example, value cannot be a financial gain. Value could be a social benefit. Social benefit. When those of you who engage in projects for the benefit of society, sometimes some of you work for government agencies, you work for a ministry, you work for a state agency, and yours is not largely that you're making a profit, but rather that you are serving a community. When you decide to do a project to supply clean water to a village or to a slum area, and not to sell the water, but to try to minimize the waterborne diseases. That's a social benefit. It's a social benefit. You're not selling the water to make a profit. It's a social benefit. You do street lighting in a slum area so that you can be able to increase, security. How do you calculate the value of that security? Sometimes it's a social benefit. Sometimes we do projects to just increase the customer base, new customers to go to the market fast. So value is from a different lens. Value can be depending on the lens at which you look from value, we can define value in a different way. So this is important for us to appreciate so that when we are talking of value, let's not just emphasize on the financial value, which sometimes is likely to be the case, but that is not the only way that we look at value. We can look at value from different perspectives, right? Now, again, we shall be covering this in detail, this particular slide, but what I want to mention to you here is that projects do not occur in a vacuum. None of us executes projects in a vacuum. Projects occur within an enterprise, within a space that is larger than the project itself. Projects occur within a space that is larger than the project itself. So because of that, projects have some influences. There are things which affect the project. And some of these things, you have no control as a project team, as a project manager. You have no control completely, but they will affect the project anyway. They will affect the project anyway. What are such things? We have what we call internal and enterprise environmental factors. What are they? Internal enterprise environmental factors, these are factors within the organization that affect the project, but you have no control as a project manager. So your project is here, but there are factors which are within the organization, within your organization, that affect the project, but you have no control over them as a project. For example, the culture of the organization. The culture of the organization. You work in an organization, and the culture there is that people come at 9 and it's acceptable. Maybe you've come from a place where people reporting work at 7:30. We come at 9. Or we have a culture where we I don't know if you've been uh, to some areas where if it's lunch hour, we can't serve you. I mean, it's just a culture there, and they've accepted that. And it's lunch hour, sir, we can't serve you. So some cultures support the project, some might hinder the project. The functional reporting area, you work in an organization and there is a lot of bureaucracy, on who you report to who. Yes, you want to fast track things, but unfortunately, you cannot because the culture hinders that. The culture hinders that. So, as a project professional, that becomes a challenge. That becomes a challenge. So you have your project is being affected by factors beyond you. You have no control. You have no control, right? That is an internal enterprise environment. But we also have external enterprise environmental factors. These are factors which are affecting your organization. Macro and microeconomic factors. You know, the the US comes and says that, hey, we are not funding any of these third world countries any longer because we're not going to use American money to fund these guys. Let them look for their own money to fund their own programs. Macroeconomic factors, factors beyond you. Those are political factors. Macroeconomic factors, interest rates, forex exchange rates. So your budget or your project budget is dominated in a lot of importations, and all these are dollar dominated. There's a fluctuation in the forex market. What does that do to you? It overshoots your project. It overshoots your project, and you could be making losses. What you thought could be making profit. So those are enterprise and external enterprise environmental factors. Those are factors that you have to be aware of so that you can factor them in your project planning. Because how do they affect your project? Some of them are potential risks. Some of them are potential risks, and you need to capture them on the onset of your project. You cannot just assume that your project is going to run, on autopilot. You have to look at what are the factors that affect the project, even without, you know, uh, my ability to influence such factors. Then, of course, you have internal enterprise environmental factors. These are templates, policies, procedures that you have to use. Again, we'll talk a little bit about more of this, but it's important just to appreciate that these are factors that all these factors are able to influence your project. Why is it important to know this? Why is it important to know this? For decision making, for you to be able to make decisions. Very fundamental, very important that you are able to appreciate that. You're able to appreciate that. So what is project management? What is project management? Project management is defined as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. That we have to use knowledge, skills, the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. That is important that we are able to appreciate that so that we have the knowledge, we come with it, give you the knowledge, skills, and be able to appreciate that. Just a small history about project management. Project management, as we know it, again mentioned in the 1960s, that is really when it got codified into what we know today, largely within the infrastructure space. And for a long time, 1960s, 1970s, and most of 1980s, project management was really considered to be, um, a field that was largely for the infrastructure space, engineers and the likes of those guys. Then in the 1990s, most organizations began to see that they could use the concepts of project management to deliver your projects within that particular spaces. So we saw a more proactive engagement in project, with project management, and especially with the IT guys, the IT professionals. They started looking at better ways of delivering projects, and they started even looking at and questioning some of the methods that were initially developed here, the traditional approaches, and they started coming up with different approaches and methodologies. For example, Scrum, XP, extreme programming, just to be able to deliver IT projects. Now, in the 2000s, this is about the dot-com era. Really, agile comes into a core focus. We shall be talking about the Agile Manifesto 2001. We have the Agile Manifesto, and the Agile Manifesto comes on board, and this really, changes the landscape, especially for the IT people, for projects which were more dynamic, as opposed to being static. And we have much more revolution around the concept of agile project management as we know it today. And we shall be talking about agile project management quite frequently as well, because your PMP exam has about a significant part of it also. I really want you to understand the whole idea of agility, being more flexible, being more agile in the delivery of projects. Then, of course, in the 2020 and beyond, where we currently are, there's now a strategic role. There's a strategic focus in project management. We trying to see, the strategic role of project management, this emphasis on value and value realization, the value of IT, or sorry, of AI, artificial intelligence in project management. What does it mean to project delivery approaches, to how we do work as project professionals? There's a strategic role and a strategic emphasis on in the project economy on the value of the strategic PM, a strategic project manager, beyond just managing time, cost, and um, and schedule. One should be more strategic. Of course, value realization is a major point of emphasis there. Then, of course, sustainability. Sustainability is now a key thing. How do we develop more sustainable projects? So there's that emphasis there. So this is gonna be a key focus in project management in the next couple of years, especially the aspect of sustainability as well and value delivery. So this is something that you need to appreciate. So what is the value of project management? Plays a key role. Better planning, we're able to collaborate and communicate better. We've seen why that is the case. Optimize resource allocation. Again, we cannot overemphasize the value of you as a project professional being able to look at this idea of optimization of resources, because projects really we spend so much money in terms of resources. So are you able to optimize that so that we are using resources well for projects? Reduce costs and timely deliveries. This is fundamental. Enhanced quality. Quality is key, and we will take some time really to appreciate this concept of quality within this particular class as well. Satisfy stakeholder expectations, fundamental as well. We tie this together with communication. So important that you're able to appreciate, the different communication strategies for different stakeholders, increase productivity, and of course, you becoming more predictable. For you to be able to meet all those things, of course, you have to work towards being a good project manager. If you're doing this course, it's because you are a project professional, you are a project manager. And I think I did allude to the fact that we want you to be the person who was the third person in our story. And that is a person who is looking at, the project as a whole, So a project manager, you are responsible for the accomplishment of the project objectives. And you need a number of skill sets. You need to be a good, communicator. You need to have some sense of business skills. Again, I alluded to this earlier. You try to be a good, have some skill set on conflict resolution. Again, we shall spend some time to look at conflict and conflict resolution strategies. This will be in lesson 4 when we talk about leadership. Then, of course, negotiation skills and influencing skills, we cannot run away from. These are good for leadership. Again, lesson 4, we spend some time to just get to appreciate. Leadership skills, fundamental. And then, of course, emotional intelligence. Again, in lesson 4, we look. So there's a lot of emphasis on you being a good project leader as opposed to just being a good project manager. So hopefully, as you go through the class, you're able to really appreciate this, that how do you become a good project leader? Just besides being a good project manager, you also want to become a good project leader, right? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is a snippet of what is to come. The rest comes in the next couple of days. Again, as you've noted, it's gonna be quite some information, quite some interesting stuff we shall be covering. for today's session. That marks the end of the session. Thank you very much for listening to us and just finding time to be here. I want to finish with this a quote from John Maxwell. He said that everything worthwhile in your life is uphill. So I like it because when I talk to professionals, sometimes a couple of people tell me, Kevin, at 5 I'm knocking off from work. That's how guys from Botswana told me, we're just knocking off from work and and it's late, I'm yet to get home. So it's not going to be easy. I mean, I know 5, you must be in the sessions, you go up, but think about the value. And there's nothing, I mean, anything that is worthwhile is going to be uphill. Anything downhill, if it's easy, many time it's not worthwhile. So I know it's not going to be easy the next couple of days together. Being able to come from work, jumping straight to class. Some of you on Saturdays, instead of being attending a friend's wedding, you tell them, hey, I can only come after 2 or after 1 because of a class. I mean, it's not going to be easy. But again, it means that it's something worthwhile. So as we endeavor to do anything else in our life, let's just make sure that we are. So they're going to be the classes that that are most coming up. So we have a class coming up on Saturday. This coming Saturday, those of you who have preference for the Saturday option, Saturday, 5th of July will be the first session. The sessions begin at 9, no, at 8 a.m. But this particular Saturday, the class will be beginning at 9 a.m. for some obvious, the trainer who's meant to pick up that class will travel just to go, will begin at requested that we begin at 9 a.m. Everyone will be in that class. So from the classes begin from 8 to 2, but on Saturday we begin the class at 9 a.m. The evening classes will begin on Monday, next week on Monday, from 8th to 31st of July. That is 4 weeks. These classes will be running from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. East Africa time. That will be 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Africa time. That is for our friends in Rwanda, Botswana, and Malawi. The rest of us are in East Africa time, Tanzania, Uganda, and I think also Somali. We are on the same time zone. So if you could scan the chart, I know there's a link to the registration. Once you register, you get all the details. You receive the pro forma invoice, which has all the details on how to make the payment, and that will be it. I saw somebody asking the chat if you can make the payments in installments. Yes, you can make the installment payment, but the installment payment plan is you need to make at least 70% before the class, then the rest after the in the course of the class. So you need to make 70% as a payment. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I really it was a great honor to be presenting to you this particular evening. I am somewhere in India currently, and now it's just a few minutes to 11. Just a few minutes to 11. So it was great to just be with you and appreciate that a number of you really have appreciated the presentation. You're gonna get the recording for this particular training, for this particular session tomorrow. It will be sent to the email that you did apply, you did register for, and also the slides that I've used for this particular presentation. I see most weekday classes. Yeah, I think that has been answered. Most of the questions I think have been answered. And also in the WhatsApp group, in the event that somebody has a question, please, the WhatsApp group, it's very fast. We always respond very quite fast. then we will always respond to you. I see Ron. Ron just jumped on the call. Hi Ron, how are you? Good to see you. How's Portugal? Are you in
Hey,
Portugal?
hi, hi, Kevin,
Hi.
and here, hi, everyone. I just jumped on the call as you are winding up. Um, just to let the guys know that I'll be privileged to start off the Saturday class. For those who will be joining the Saturday class, will be leading that class. But I'll be arriving in Nairobi in the wee hours of Saturday, so that's the reason the class starts at 9 a.m. rather than 8 a.m. The
Okay.
subsequent classes will begin promptly at 8 a.m.
Okay, great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ron. Go for that clarity. I asked Mesha Kairu, ask Sahe, Miss, may you have any physical classes? Yes, indeed, we do have physical classes, but the physical classes are usually very intermittent. We had the last physical class in Naivasha. Definitely, the physical classes are for the Kenyan community, and we have very intermittent classes. We perhaps might have the find some class towards the last quarter of the year. So you need to be on the lookout of course, of the WhatsApp group. We have all this communication. But again, as I mentioned, they're very intermittent, and all of them, of course, pegged on their being available quota. The virtual classes tend to be more consistent because there's always quorum for the virtual classes. So and of definitely the virtual classes are always much cheaper. The physical classes are double the price of the virtual classes because of the conferencing facilities. Usually they will be in a hotel setting. The physical classes are usually 1 week. Usually 1 week. It's a crash course. It's a Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. So it's usually a crash course, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, finish. So it's usually a 1 week kind of setup. Um, I see most questions have been answered or asked and answered. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you, each one of you, for finding time to be present in today's presentation. I really do hope it was of value to you. You found some sense of some value in this particular presentation, and hopefully it demystified. It helps you really understand, the journey, how the journey looks like, the PMP journey, which, in my opinion, is a great journey to take and a great addition to your certification and your career. So I'm looking forward to engaging with you in the next couple of days and weeks together as we build up on this knowledge of project management and quite honestly, uh, I don't think we've had anybody who came to the classes and never got value from these particular classes. So even as we engage in the next couple of days and weeks for the evening and the Saturday classes, I'm certain that all of us will get value in these particular classes, value for your time, and most importantly, of course, being able to pass your exam, and of course, get value for your time and your money. So thank you very much. See you on Saturday. Those of you on the Saturday track, those of you on the evening track, see you on Monday, 6 p.m., 5 p.m. Central Africa time. We always like to call that time 8 a.m. on Saturday or 6 p.m. on the weekdays. We will be referring to it as the PMP o'clock. That is what we have, call it here. So you will be just maybe how it looks like, or you will be perhaps those of you who already finalized with Brenda and Jonathan, and you will receive you're gonna be receiving an invite to join the group for if you pay for the Saturday class, you'll be the Saturday class WhatsApp. if you paid for the evening class, you'll be joining the evening class, the WhatsApp group. And of course, you'll get the links to the subsequent classes, the Saturday class or the evening class. On the first day of the class, we always like to just have our cameras on so that we can put the faces to the names so that we can bring these classes make the classes more interactive. And also, so we encourage that you all be on camera. We want to do some brief intro. We wish to know you, we know your nationality, where you come from, your country, and of course, what success looks like for you in the classes, so that even as we engage, we know what is the acceptance criteria, what is your definition of done when we are done with these particular classes. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, see you on Saturday. See you on Monday. Those of you on the Monday track. But whatever it takes, please make sure that you get this PMP certification. If you're in the space of project management, I can tell you, you can only thank me later. You can only thank me later for that decision. So thank you very much. See you on Saturday or on Monday, those of you. Namaste. Bye. Have a good one.